Hello and welcome to Oakville Matters. One of the things that matters the most to Oakville is being safe from fires. And one of Oakville's favorite town services, very highly rated, is our fire service. And joining us today to talk about the future of the Oakville Fire Department is our chief, Paul Boissonneau, and our relatively new deputy chief, Kalpana Rajgopalan. Welcome. Chief, do you want to talk a little bit about how you got Deputy Chief Rajgopalan to join us?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Your Worship, for having us on here today. It's always an awesome opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of the Oakville Fire Department to the community and all the great things that we're trying to do. And the support of yourself and council is amazing. Deputy Chief Rajgopalan came to us just at the end of August after a pretty extensive search, and her portfolio essentially contains the areas of fire prevention, public education, and emergency management. She has a wealth of knowledge and expertise in all of those areas from different organizations over the years, and she has already made a measurable impact within our organization in the last 8 months, and we have a fairly new overall fire management team in general, but she has fit very well into the mix, and we're very excited to have her moving forward.
Well, Deputy Chief Rajgopalan, I know that Oakville's always had a big emphasis on training and prevention. It's sort of the theory that the fire that absolutely isn't going to hurt you or anyone else is the fire you prevent or avoid. How do you like the training situation? What kind of improvements do you think we need?
Mr. Mayor and Chief, thank you for the warm welcome. It's absolutely an honor and a pleasure to be here. I will focus on the fire prevention component of it. Our vision and our purpose is to keep our community safe. So what we're always aiming to do is to teach children the behaviors that we want them to follow. And we're also looking to do the same with adults, because we want the adults in their lives to model those behaviors as well. So through a number of outreach programs, whether they're targeted towards children, such as learning not to burn, arson prevention, home fire safety awareness, fireworks education, our goal is to educate our community on fire and life safety. We've also added programs and fire safety presentations that meet the language level of, let's say, newcomers or those with English as second language needs, because the idea of a fire safe home is universal, and we want to make sure we're able to reach our community in every way possible so that we can encourage that fire safe behavior from children all the way through to adults.
Well, you know, it's fascinating, the incredible spectrum where of fire dangers. Just the other day, I was going by a plaza that's right beside an apartment tower, and we had a few of our trucks there, and the waitress that I spoke to in the restaurant there said that they have fires there constantly. She said, I'm not sure how she would know, but she said that people on upper floor balconies are smoking, and they flick cigarettes when they're done with them without extinguishing them out into the air, and sometimes they land on lower balconies and cause fires. And frankly, I never realized that went on. I actually never realized anybody would be so thoughtless as to flick their cigarette butt still burning out. Chief, do we get very much of that?
You'd be surprised, Your Worship. Actually, there is quite a bit of inappropriately discarded smoking materials is actually one of the leading causes of residential house fires in the province of Ontario. Unattended cooking or kitchen-related fires are certainly the deadliest and the most prevalent, but you would be surprised how many people do not practice fire safety techniques with discarding smoking materials in a deep ashtray, make sure it's outdoors, make sure it's got appropriate clearance from combustible materials. You know, our building construction of today is significantly different than years past, in the sense that everything is pre-engineered. There is a lot of lightweight truss construction, and it's no longer the theory of of mass versus math now, in the sense that in a residential home, a trust system is reliant upon each other member, as opposed to if you think about an old church being built, some of the large timber frame construction is much harder to burn through. And even though it burns hot, it doesn't burn as hot as glue laminates and different constructions of today. So making sure that our fire safety messaging is succinct, that we get to all members of the public in a life safety measure, is one of our continuous goals to make sure we keep our residents safe.
Gee, and you know, we go around believing that the province of Ontario, which regulates building materials through the building code, would be constantly making things safer, but it sounds like you just described a situation where they're not getting safer.
There are many code enforcement and or code changes that are certainly convenient based. There is, of course, other measures for fire suppression systems and such to help augment some of those fire safety concerns. But again, it all comes with maintenance, inspections, testing, and making sure that every building and or residence has those measures in place so that the residents in those locations, be it a single family dwelling or a multiple unit dwelling, that those parameters are taken care of. And that's where our fire prevention staff comes in so critically, is for inspection-based practices and code enforcement to ensure that we're checking on those things on a regular basis. It's one thing through building construction where our personnel are involved in building permits, as well as the issuance of those permits through the building division, but the final occupancy permit and the changeover to the building then becomes the onus on fire. So the further inspection practices and how we maintain those safety standards is incumbent upon our department.
Well, you know, all of that makes me realize that it's even more important than people might think that we have enough fire stations. And it's a very big deal to add a fire station to our system, because it's not just a building, it's trucks and personnel. What are your plans for when and where is our next new fire station?
So very, very happy to announce that our next fire station is actually a replacement station. In 2014, Station 9 opened up at the North Ops location, and our personnel were put into a temporary location at that time. And happy to announce that in 24-25, we are going to, 23-24, we are going to have our new fire station built just near 6 Line north of Burningthorpe, near Loyalist. And that is in conjunction with past master fire planning to ensure that we have appropriate areas of distance for response levels for the 4-minute or less NFPA standard for first arriving apparatus. And it helps.
Excuse me, NFPA?
Yes, sorry. Fire lingo for acronyms. My apologies, Your Worship. National Fire Protection Association. So in the absence of a regulation or legislation, National Fire Protection Association is a recognized best practice standard that is recognized throughout North America and the world, which helps identify best practices for fire safety response, equipment, garments, apparatus, everything to do with fire to a best practice standard. So our response levels will not only adhere to recommendations from the Office of the Fire Marshal in Ontario, but also geared towards continuing to try and meet NFPA standards for response. And as we know, the Corporation of the Town of Oakville is growing immensely, with huge population growth projected between now and our immediate future to 2031, but also out to 2051. And we have to make sure that we have the appropriate stations and response. Also looking at intensification and working with other divisions within the corporation, make sure that we have the best department standards possible for our 3 lines of defense.
So where would you predict the next station after number 9 would be?
So we currently are right now dealing with our new fire master plan. We'll be providing a report and presentations to council in Q3, Q4 of 2022. And we will be looking at all of our response types and working with data analytics to see where our call volumes are, working with planning to see where the intensification and the building construction will be taking place into the future. Our 9 stations currently will meet the needs of our current populations, but as growth is projected north of Burnham Thorpe and certainly more towards the 403 area, there could be, and I say could, determined by consultants, there could be a need for maybe a 10th station or 11th station based upon intensification and population growth, as well as statistics to back things up. Even during COVID, we had a call volume increase of over 2%, and that's with people being in their homes. As the intensification and buildings continue to grow, we will see a greater rise in our call volume, and we need to make sure that our KPIs, our key performance indicators, are currently met, so that we're serving the residents appropriately at their time of need, because that's essentially what we do all the time. Is we're trying to make someone's day who is not having a very good day, we're trying to make it just a little bit better.
Oh, well, it should be clear to everybody that council and I are firmly dedicated to making sure we have adequate fire protection. And we look forward to keeping up with the growth that the federal government is causing with, the hugely increased intake into the country, and the really big growth orders that we're getting from the province of Ontario, where we really have no choice. Our role is to make sure that there's a place for people to live, and we get those orders from the center, as they call themselves, and you're actually not allowed to say no. So I could easily imagine a 10th and 11th station over to the east. Perhaps I think of 8th line is going to go up quite a ways there, and or even on 9th line and Burnham Thorpe or some other intermediate station. I think it's a wonderful thing to celebrate when we build a new fire station. I was in a fire as a young child, and I am sure that nobody should ever be in one, and I never want to be in another one. And we were saved by firefighters. So, if anybody ever wonders why I'm such a big supporter of our fire department, well, it started young. So now that takes me back to training, Deputy Chief. We've long been proud of our fire training campus, but council and I have a culture of continuous improvement. We're open to any discovery you may bring us as to what's needed in order to be even better.
So in terms of training, again, Your Worship, you know that we are very fortunate to have a beautiful 6-acre campus with all of the access that we would need to the possible training scenarios, and allowing us the opportunity to keep our personnel fit and ready to respond both physically and mentally. So at this point in time, I think our goal is to be able to continue to obtain equipment that would help us respond to what we see, whether it's to be able to work with electric cars and or some of the other challenges that are evolving as things change. Those are what we see as possible improvements, is just continuing to innovate, continuing to evolve, and having access to both our campus, but also to be able to train on equipment and resources that reflect the responses that we're required to provide. Electric vehicles, for example, as just one of those components.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's reassuring to know that you have your eye on it, and it's kind of gratifying to hear that no immediate massive improvements are in view, or needed, I mean. Chief, it's probably always a surprise to the public to learn that we have key performance indicators for all the services that we do. Would you like to share with the public how your department's doing on your key performance indicators?
Sure, and if I may, I just also want to indicate that in the past 2 years during COVID, there was some unique challenges facing the province of Ontario in fire services all across the province, because the Ontario Fire College was closed. And so we went through a very rigorous, I guess, evaluation process, Your Worship, where we had evaluators come in from the OFM and review our training campus to see if we could become a regional training center. And what that means is not only would we have obviously our opportunity to train our firefighters internally, but we also have the ability, once approved, to run courses on a provincial scale that help bring different knowledge and expertise and different accreditations at our own training campus. So we would be reaching out immediately to our Halton regional partners to see about running courses here that would be of benefit to them. So we've already run a public educators NFPA 1035 course, which is excellent for department personnel to be able to speak to the public about different initiatives and safety parameters. We also, as part of the training, the college closing down, we received a one-time grant where we also put in a blue card incident management training system, as well as a sprinkler training system, so that when our crews on a regular basis can train to the sprinkler, the major and minor sprinkler systems that they would encounter in regular high-rise buildings. So we continuously look to improve that regional training center. Though it's excellent at this point, we will continue to put forward viable information to council for consideration as we continue to look for those continuous improvements in our training center. But I've said this before, and I'll say this again, we are extremely fortunate to have the training campus that we do, and that's by the support of mayor and members of council and the community to make sure that our personnel are viably trained. And sorry, I didn't speak to the KPIs, but I wanted that part of the training because I will say this selfishly as a chief, I am extremely proud of our training campus and our training division and the support of council in order to do those initiatives, because it is part of the success that we have on so many fronts. That's why our auto extrication team is ranked number 6 in the world. That's why our fire fit team had become world champions. That's how we were able to enhance our establishing and regulating bylaw for technical rescue, for rope, for swift water, for ice and water rescue training, for confined space, driver training. All of those things we're able to do at our very own campus, which is so beneficial as opposed to trying to send people away for accredited training. And that is huge for our department. It truly is. Well,
Before we go back to the KPIs or key performance indicators, because I'll give you another shot at that. We're the 11th largest municipality in Ontario and the 25th largest in Canada. And so, there's thousands of municipalities in Canada and 444 in Ontario. How many others have fire training campuses like us or as good as us?
As good as us would be a very hard answer to provide, but I would suggest that there is definitely less than 10 that would be even viable training campuses. And I would say that our campus, based on size, scale, and scope of what we are as a large urban 12 fire department in Ontario, we are definitely in the top 5, and I would argue top 3 for what we can do at our campus. We can do pretty much anything that some of the larger training campuses can do. And they simply have more staff than us. But to be honest with you, Toronto and Mississauga are 2 areas that come to mind for training campuses. But based upon our size and our composition, our training campus, I wouldn't trade for anything, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm sure it's reassuring to the residents of Mississauga, and it should be that they're good. I mean, they're 3.5 times bigger than Oakville, and I know Toronto something like 14 times bigger than Oakville. It's 14, 15 times. So I'm hearing that we carry, we punch above our weight, I think is the expression. and that's a proud making thing. I'd also be curious to know, do our smaller neighbors ever see the occasion to use our facility or borrow our facility? How does that work? Do we
Yeah,
just
so
do we
as
welcome
part of
them and put out the coffee and donuts? What goes on?
Well, actually, they use it as a rental facility for their live fire training. So Milton has used our facility oftentimes. And as I indicated through the Regional Training Center initiative, there will be additional courses where we have a multitude of various personnel, whether it's Burlington, Halton Hills, Milton, and Oakville staff all together, or whether it's actual rentals or courses being run through our regional training center and through the Office of the Fire Marshal moving forward. We have learning contracts that we sign, and we are very, very excited to be recognized as one of those approved regional training centers, because with the closure of the fire college, we have to be ready, and our personnel need to remain trained.
Well, it's a good thing we're farsighted enough to have a good training facility in those circumstances.
Yes.
So do you want another shot at the KPIs?
Yeah, I apologize because I'm a passionate person about training. So I didn't mean to skip the question by any means, Your Worship. Our KPI is essentially what we break down for a submission to council on a regular basis is essentially 5 KPIs, which would be percentage of gross operating budget, which we have remained very consistently around the 15% mark. There has been variations that range anywhere from a 0.4 to about a 0.8 of a percentage since 2017. So we've remained consistent, and included in that would have been the opening of Fire Station 8, which was essentially our 9th station. That was in 2020. So keeping the KPIs in line on an overall budget perspective while opening a station shows that we've been committed to ensuring that our costs have not increased significantly, even though we've increased level of service. Our percentage of total FTEs, we are basically on track with population growth and our number of firefighter complements. So, that too has remained since 2017 was around 14.1, and in 2021 was 14.6. But again, new Station 8, 20 new firefighters, new personnel. So that variation is also pretty consistent. Our crew's response time of 240 seconds or less, that is one of those NFPA guidelines that I mentioned to you prior. Essentially, the first arriving unit on scene within 4 minutes of call. And we have improved upon our numbers of the past. I would suggest that when new Station 9 is fully operational, that will only improve. And as part of that fire master plan process that we'll be submitting by the end of this year, we will have a very good understanding through data analytics as to where the intensification areas are and how we can make sure that we're on a continuous improvements basis, that our crews are trying to get into that echelon of well into the 70s and possibly into the 80s percentile range. The fire-related injuries, it's a very challenging one because one devastating event can very much skew the numbers on a regular basis. So if you had one fatality fire, that can change the numbers. But we have had basically fire-related injuries per 100,000 of usually numbers of in the 2 range to 3 range. So 3 injuries per 100,000 population. So again, using the adage from the song, we didn't start the fire, but we certainly want to make an appropriate response to save a savable life. And we're very proud to do that. And then the number of firefighters per 100,000, the benchmark is rate around 110 to 100 in that range, which is based upon overall municipalities in the province, and the large urban 12 is kind of that range. And we sit right around 104 right now. So we are right within that acceptable range, and we will continue to review the data, but to make sure that I hope this gives our residents an indication that there are multiple facets to data collection and that we continuously maintain those elements to make sure that we're on top of things.
Well, the safety record tends to verify that your KPIs are tracking pretty well. I'm curious, we co-located an ambulance station and a fire station, and that's a little bit unusual. Has that worked out? Is that a model we might see again in the future?
To be honest with you, Your Worship, I think anything and everything is on the table as we move forward. As you mentioned before, sometimes provincial governments and or federal initiatives provide opportunities for infrastructure, and fire is the only municipal emergency service that is 100% solely funded by the municipality. So there could be opportunities into the future. And what I would say is I don't think we're against any form of efficiency to be found to ensure that we're providing the best service to our residents. I think anything and everything is on the table.
So I gather that you haven't found any defect with the co-location so far.
No, I think the only thing that we would like to see an advancement of is the simultaneous dispatch, which would be a provincial initiative to ensure that both fire, EMS, and even in some cases, police can be dispatched at the exact same time. We have the infrastructure there. Pilot programs have been done for almost 20 years. There's no reason why we shouldn't have simultaneous dispatch. And that's something that we will continue to advocate for into the future.
Well, let's hope our provincial masters heed us. So keep going with that. Now, what about the impact of COVID on, because of, we're presuming there was a lot more working at home. Did fire calls increase dramatically or stay the same? What happened?
I'll start this and then I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Raj Goplan, because our call volume did increase by 2%, but I'm going to tell you, she worked tirelessly on the OFD fire safety, our COVID safety plan, and that was a huge benefit to our corporation. So I'll let you wrap that up and any final messaging on the kind of the 3 lines of defense, Deputy Chief.
Well, actually, Deputy Chief, before you wrap it up, I'm going to have to wrap it up because we're just about out of time. This has been a very illuminating conversation, and I thank you both for the time that you gave it and the information that you brought. And I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you'll let me know, mayor@oakville.ca, of any topics that you want to see explored here on Oakville Matters. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.